My name is Amelia Crossman, and if you asked anyone who knew me a few years ago, they'd tell you I was too generous for my own good. Generous with my money, my time, my trust. I used to believe that kindness was the one currency that never ran out, that if you gave enough of yourself, the world would pay it back somehow. But I was wrong. What I learned instead is that generosity can become a curse, a target painted across your chest, inviting the greedy, the manipulative, and the cruel to carve pieces out of you until you're hollow. And when I finally snapped, when I decided to stop bleeding for everyone else, I discovered just how sharp a generous woman's revenge could be. It started on a cold March evening in Columbus, Ohio, the kind of night where the wind cuts through your coat and your bones ache. I had stayed late at the non-profit where I worked, organizing donations for a family who'd lost their home to a fire. My hands were stiff from sorting winter coats and canned food, but my heart was full. I believed in the work, in giving back, in filling in the cracks where life broke people down. That's who I was, or maybe who I wanted to be. Selfless, useful, loved. But as I trudged back to my apartment, my phone lit up with a dozen missed calls from the one person who had already begun testing the limits of my kindness. My cousin Jenna. Jenna was 3 years younger, sharp-tongued, and reckless in a way that always made me feel like the boring older sister she never had. She grew up bouncing between jobs and boyfriends, always chasing some shortcut to the good life. And I, fool that I was, kept bailing her out. A speeding ticket here, a rent check there. She always called me with tears in her voice, swearing this was the last time, that she just needed one more chance. And every time I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But that night, when I picked up her call, she wasn't crying. She was laughing. Drunk, maybe high, surrounded by the muffled sounds of a party. "Amy, babe," she slurred. "You're gonna love me for this. I've got an investment opportunity for you. Double your money in 3 months. Easy. You trust me, right?" I remember staring out at the snow-dusted streetlights, my breath fogging the glass. Something inside me twisted. It wasn't just the audacity of asking for more, it was the entitlement. Like she already knew I'd say yes. And the worst part? A part of me considered it. Because that's what I did. I gave, even when it hurt. Over the weeks that followed, Jenna pulled me deeper into her schemes. She introduced me to her new boyfriend, Mark, a slick man with 2 white teeth and the kind of handshake that feels like it's stealing something from you. They pitched me this business plan, importing luxury goods from overseas, flipping them for profit. It sounded flimsy, but they were persuasive, dangling words like family partnership and your chance to finally live, not just scrape by. Against my better judgment, I wired them $5,000. It was nearly all the savings I had, scraped together from years of skipped vacations and second-hand clothes. I told myself it was an investment in family, in Jenna's future. But the second I hit send, I felt that pit open in my stomach. The one that whispers you just made a mistake you can't undo. 3 months passed. Then 4. My calls went unanswered, my texts left on read. When Jenna finally resurfaced, she was evasive, promising the money was tied up, that she just needed a little more to cover customs fees. That's when the lies became obvious. My generosity had turned me into their mark. They weren't just stealing my money, they were stealing my faith in myself, in the person I thought I was. And something inside me broke. I wish I could tell you I walked away right then. But no, I let them take more. Another 2,000. Then another 500. Until one morning I checked my bank account and realized I had less than $50 to my name. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands shaking, and whispered to the empty room. What have I done? My rent was due, my bills piled up, and the people I thought I was helping had vanished into the night. I had given so much that I had nothing left. Nothing. Except anger. That anger became a seed, small at first, then consuming. Every memory of Jenna's smirk, every time Mark called me sweetheart, like I was some gullible fool, every sacrifice I'd made, they festered until I couldn't breathe. And in that darkness, I started to plan. Revenge wasn't just a fantasy, It was the only way I could reclaim myself. If generosity had cursed me, then cunning would save me. But to do it right, I had to play the long game. I stopped answering Jenna's calls. For weeks, I let them pile up in my voicemail, each one dripping with fake concern or shallow excuses. "Hey Amy babe, don't stress, we're just waiting on the shipment. 'Cause, you gotta trust me, we're family." The words that used to sting now felt like fuel, each syllable sharpening the edge of my resolve. I wasn't going to beg for scraps of honesty anymore. I was going to take back what was mine, and I was going to do it in a way they'd never see coming. I began by gathering information. Jenna wasn't clever, she was careless. She left trails everywhere, Instagram posts of expensive dinners, Facebook check-ins at bars, blurry TikToks flashing bottles of champagne. And Mark, oh, he loved to flaunt. He bragged about business meetings at upscale hotels, tagged himself at car dealerships, talked about the import empire he was building. The more I dug, the clearer it became. There was no business. Just fraud, vanity, and a stack of people like me funding their good time. One night, I drove past Jenna's apartment. Her car, a new BMW she couldn't possibly afford, sat gleaming under the streetlight. I parked a block away and watched. Music thumped from inside, shadows moving across the blinds. They were celebrating, no doubt with my money. My fingers dug into the steering wheel until my nails left crescent moons. That's when the thought hit me. They think I'm weak because I give. But what happens when I stop giving and start taking? I didn't have money, but I had something better: patience. I waited, quietly, pretending to fade into the background. I paid my bills late, picked up extra shifts at the non-profit, lived on ramen noodles, all while smiling when anyone asked if I was okay. Inside, I was constructing a trap. Revenge, I realized, isn't about striking first, it's about striking right. The first step was reeling Jenna back in. I called her after weeks of silence, my voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Jen, I'm scared. Rent's due. I don't know what to do. I don't even have money for groceries." The hook landed instantly. She softened, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. "Oh, Amy, you should have told me sooner. Look, Mark and we're close to breaking even. Just hang in there. Maybe if you can send a little more." I let her ramble, let her think I was still under her spell. But what I was really doing was gathering proof. Every lie, every manipulation I recorded. Then came Mark. He fancied himself the brains of their little con, but his arrogance was his weakness. I played naive, asking him to explain how the customs process works. He couldn't resist showing off, weaving half-truths and jargon, but in his eagerness he revealed names, locations, and contacts. Not real import partners. No, it was worse. He was using fake invoices, funneling money through shell accounts, even bragging about tricking some gullible charity workers. He had no idea that I was one of them, and that I was writing down every word. The turning point came on a night I'll never forget. Jenna called me drunk, laughing hysterically. "Amy, you're seriously the best. Mark says you're our golden goose. You always come through. Can you believe some people are so stingy? Not you though. Your family. You'll give until it hurts." And then she hung up, cackling. I sat in the dark, the words burning into my skin like acid. Golden goose. That's all I was to them, a source to be drained dry. And in that moment, the final pieces of my plan locked into place. I reached out to a friend from the non-profit, Daniel, who'd once worked in law enforcement before burning out. He still had connections, still knew how to read financial trails. Over coffee, I spilled everything, every transfer, every promise, every message. At first he just frowned, but when I showed him the recordings, his eyes narrowed. "This isn't just family drama, Amy. This is fraud. If you want, I can pass this along quietly." I shook my head. "Not yet. I want them to feel it first. I want them to know it was me." So I set the stage. I told Jenna I'd scrape together another $3,000. Her excitement nearly spilled through the phone. "You're saving us, Amy. You're amazing." I told her I wanted to hand it over in person, at their favorite bar. She didn't hesitate. The next night, I walked in with an envelope in my purse, not filled with cash, but with photocopies of every damning document I had. I slid into the booth, smiled sweetly, and listened as Mark spun another fantasy about doubling my money. When he finally reached for the envelope, I leaned close and whispered, "Funny thing about generosity. People mistake it for weakness. But generosity, Mark, it means I've been keeping receipts." I left them there, confused and stammering, while I stepped into the cold night and dialed Daniel. "It's time," I said simply. Within 48 hours, subpoenas were filed. Accounts frozen. Their BMW repossessed. The bar they loved so much whispered about that couple who got busted. I didn't see Jenna's face when she realized her golden goose had turned predator, but I imagined it often. Shock curdling into fear, into rage, into despair. And me. I didn't get my money back. Not all of it. But I got something better. Control. The news hit Jenna and Mark like a bomb. I didn't have to see them to know. My phone lit up with messages that swung from pleading to threats in the span of hours. "Amy, what did you do? You ruined us, you selfish bitch. We can fix this, just call me back, please." I stared at each one, my pulse steady, my lips curled into a smile I didn't recognize on my own face. For once, they were the desperate ones, scrambling, drowning. And I was the one holding the rope, choosing whether to pull or let go. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Daniel told me the prosecutors had enough to make a case for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Mark's shell accounts, Jenna's forged signatures, the recordings of their voices dripping with arrogance, it all stacked into a damning tower. Their empire, such as it was, crumbled in plain view. Landlords demanded back rent. Creditors came knocking. Friends who had flocked to their parties suddenly vanished, unwilling to be associated with scandal. But I wasn't done yet. Revenge isn't just about punishment, it's about exposure. They had taken my money, my dignity, my trust. I wanted to take their masks. I leaked pieces of their scheme to the very social media platforms they used to flaunt their lies. Screenshots of invoices that didn't add up. Clips of Mark bragging about suckers funding his lifestyle. Posts under anonymous accounts, tagged just enough for people in their orbit to see. Within days, their names became poison. Employers blacklisted them. Neighbors whispered. Even Jenna's so-called friends turned on her, leaving her isolated in the same online world where she once gloated about bottle service and BMWs. The climax came on a rainy Thursday morning when federal agents showed up at their apartment. I know because I parked across the street, hood pulled low, and watched as Mark was led out in handcuffs, his smirk replaced by a pale, twisted sneer. Jenna stumbled behind, mascara streaked, screaming about betrayal. For a moment, she locked eyes with me through the storm. Her face contorted into something I'll never forget. Shock, recognition, then raw, animal hatred. She knew. She knew it was me. And instead of fear, I felt exhilaration. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one being drained. I was the one holding the knife. After their arrest, the fallout was relentless. Their assets, what little remained, were seized. Mark was denied bail. Jenna tried to spin herself as the victim, but the evidence was merciless. Every recording, every transfer, every boast pinned her down. I sat in the courtroom during one of the hearings, unnoticed in the back row, and listened as the judge read out the charges. Fraud. Conspiracy. Theft by deception. I expected to feel pity, maybe a flicker of guilt. Instead, I felt cold satisfaction, like justice had finally balanced the scales. But revenge isn't clean. It leaves residue. I went home after that hearing and stood in front of the mirror, studying myself. The girl who once believed generosity was a shield was gone. What stared back at me was sharper, harder. I had won, but the victory carried weight. My savings were gone, my trust in people shattered. I was rebuilding from the ground up, brick by bitter brick. And sometimes, late at night, I heard Jenna's voice in my head, calling me her golden goose. I'd whisper back, "Not anymore." Still, when people ask me now why I don't give so freely, why I measure every ounce of kindness, I tell them the truth. Because generosity, unchecked, becomes a curse. And if you're not careful, it will bleed you dry. But if you survive it, if you learn to wield it, you'll discover it can also be the sharpest weapon of all. If you enjoyed this revenge story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from.